By the time Halloween was released in 1978, horror fans were no strangers to the slasher genre. Movies like Psycho and Texas Chainsaw Massacre had already paved the way for a new horror movie murderer. And the slasher genre exploded after the release of Halloween, leading to movies like Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street. Halloween was directed, scored, and co-written by horror legend John Carpenter. On a budget of merely $325,000. And it was a low-budget horror thriller aimed at secondary markets and drive-ins. The film and filmmakers held no illusions about the type of movie they were creating, with Carpenter even stating, "That's a programmed movie. It's an old county fair haunted house movie. You say to the audience, you're going to see something that's going to scare you. Now get ready. I'm not going to tell you when it's going to come, but here it comes. It's programmed right in, just laying on it." Halloween is credited with creating the beginning of the slash and gore films of the 1980s. But the movie contains surprisingly little blood and gore, and fulfills all of the cliches we have become used to in horror. Who hasn't seen a slasher movie where the young, pretty babysitter tries to escape the clutches of a madman? But the way John Carpenter included his brilliant score, his use of shadows the killer could lurk in silently in the corner, and the throwbacks and nods to Hitchcock movies, positioned Halloween in a place of reverence in the horror world, and inspired other directors and writers to dive into the previously low-budget B-world movie of horror. The script for Halloween was written in merely 10 days by John Carpenter and his co-writer Deborah Hill. The movie was filmed in merely 20 days in the spring of 1978 and would go on to be released in October of the same year, featuring Jamie Lee Curtis, daughter of Janet Leigh of Psycho fame, in her first movie role. Jamie has since reprised her role in many of the sequels, as well as a few of the remakes, making her the reigning scream queen of our time. Michael Myers was described in the script as having the pale, neutral features of a man, which led to the production team eventually giving the character a stretched-out Captain Kirk mask from a Halloween store. The mask that was painted white will be forever ingrained in our minds as something to instill fear and terror. Michael was primal, unreasoning, deadly, and inhuman. Throughout the movie, his iconic mask lurks silently in the background of shots. Behind shoulders, doorways, and generally just lingering in the shadows. In future films, Michael was given a connection to his prime target, Laurie, as well as being given supernatural origins. The story of Halloween was set in Haddonfield, Illinois, meant to be a neutral, suburban landscape to starkly contrast the bloodlust we see throughout the film. The suburban setting of this film was so well done that it has been revisited in horror movies countless times. Myers was a local legend in Haddonfield, having murdered his teenage sister and then been incarcerated in an asylum since. Myers escapes and sets his sights on helpless babysitter Laurie. Laurie is an icon of horror. Often called the original Scream Queen, Laurie is the character who sets the stage for a classic horror trope: the final girl. The final girl formula was established by Halloween as a slightly androgynous, less popular virgin who triumphs despite the odds playing against her at every turn. The final girl trope has been condemned by many feminist groups, who deem the final girl as a patriarchal construct, a manipulated virgin victim who triumphs through purity and passivity, often surviving entirely by accident. Regardless of their intentions or our feelings on the final girl trope, the team behind Halloween created a film that transcended genres and became a game changer in the horror world. There have been countless imitations of this film, a remake series by Rob Zombie, and yet another by David Gordon Green, as well as 9 sequels. There is no denying that Halloween had an incredible impact on the world of horror. And we are still seeing inspirations taken from this movie in horror films releasing today. Who is your favorite horror movie slasher? Who's your favorite final girl? Let me know in the comments below. And thank you for watching another spooky episode of A Brief History.